Hey, what's going on, Guardians? My name is the Black Link, and today I'm going to be bringing you a video on a Titan Solar 3.0 build that I have been absolutely loving as of late. Solar 3.0 has provided a lot of goodies for the three main classes in Destiny 2. But in my opinion, I think Titan Solar 3.0 is easily the most versatile class in the game right now. You can run max resilience unkillable Titan, you can run big bonk build, or you can even run as a Consecration Sunspot monster. And the latter there is what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. This build is going to allow you to deal massive damage, have insane survivability all throughout the game with massive buffs to resilience as well as restoration and cure, and it's going to be a build that you'll be able to utilize to its fullest after Season 17 ends. No artifact mods required at all. The entire basis of this build is going to be focused around the new Titan melee, Consecration. This is a new Titan aspect for Solar 3.0. It gives you that awesome sliding and then jumping melee attack. It's a two-parter where you basically become your own wave frame grenade launcher. This has some incredible benefits with Solar 3.0, and with this particular build, you're going to be able to technically activate all three of the Solar 3.0 aspects for Titans and get all of the benefits on this one build. Again, no artifact mods required. Alright, let's go ahead and dive on into how this thing works. Well, with the hotfix that Bungie put into effect last week, we got some much needed buffs for Solar Warlocks and Titans. In particular for Titans, Burning Maul got a 25% damage buff in PvE, definitely making it a worthwhile option to pick. And then, we got two major buffs for Roaring Flames and Consecration. And the combination of those two aspects with a very particular exotic is what makes this build so good. And so if you haven't had a chance to try out Burning Maul, it's a lot better in PvE now with that 25% damage buff. For everything else, it's pretty standard stuff. You want to rally barricade, whatever jump it you're comfortable with, and then run Throwing Hammer. This isn't technically a Throwing Hammer build, though Throwing Hammer is going to be getting some benefits from it as well. The real reason we run this is to get instant access to cure. Every time you throw your hammer and then pick it up, you get a nice little burst of healing. As for your grenade, it's really your choice. You guys know I love fusion grenades right now. They are so strong, they're basically pocket rockets that you can almost have up all the time. When it comes to the aspects, we're looking at Consecration and Roaring Flames. With Consecration, while sliding, you can activate your charged melee ability to launch a wave of solar energy forward, damaging and scorching targets in front of you as you leap into the air. When you're airborne, activate your charged melee again to slam to the ground and create a second, larger wave of damaging solar energy. If the wave hits a scorched target, they then ignite. This got a couple of buffs in last week's hotfix. First off, they've increased its fragment slots from 1 to 2. Major change there. And they raised the height of the secondary attack's ground wave by 25% to more easily catch players who jump too late. So they basically made it even easier to use, and they gave you more of a reason to use it with the fragment slots. Then, of course, Roaring Flames. Final blows with solar abilities or ignitions increase the damage of your solar abilities. This stacks up to 3 times, and while Roaring Flames is active, your uncharged melee attack will also deal solar damage and scorches targets. That's the big buff that this got last week. Once you've got Roaring Flames active, you can just go around meleeing things even without a melee charge. You'll notice those enemies will ignite and then explode when they die. It counts as a powered melee kill, meaning you can just go throw melees out and generate elemental wells using Melee Wellmaker. It is a major part of this build, and the update has made Roaring Flames definitely a worthwhile choice. Alright, let's move on to some of the fragments. First up, we've got Ember of Searing, where defeating scorched targets is going to grant you melee energy. You're going to be scorching things all over the battlefield, and this build is all about getting that Consecration powered melee back, so this definitely helps with that. Then, Ember of Torches. Powered melee attacks against combatants will make you and nearby allies radiant. Radiant, of course, one of the new buffs. When it's active, your weapons are going to be enhanced by the power of the Traveler to deal increased damage to foes. It's a pretty sizable damage buff, and it's definitely worth having on. Then we've got Ember of Empyrean. Solar weapon or ability final blows extend the duration of restoration and radiant effects applied to you. I know a lot of people are still probably using Ember of Solace. Unlock Ember of Empyrean and use it. It's a much better version of Solace. And it allows you to keep your restoration and radiant up so long as you're getting solar weapon or ability final blows. It's actually ludicrously easy to keep those buffs going, and it makes you virtually unkillable in PvE. Finally, of course, we've got Ember of Singeing, where your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. This is just going to be a part of the basic rotation of this build. As you're going out, you're using your Consecration ability, you're blowing things up, you're spawning elemental wells. You want to have access to your rally barricade as often as possible so that you can run some sunspots, and we'll be getting into that in just a second. So those are the basics for the class build. Now this is all going to be working in tangent with the Lorelei Splendor Helm, everybody's favorite current Titan helm. This comes with Cauterizing Flame. When you're critically wounded with full class ability energy or when you cast a barricade, create a sunspot at your location that has improved restoration effects. That's what you want to pay attention to. Improved restoration effects means restoration times 2, which is among the strongest heals in the game. And when you mix that with Ember of Empyrean, you can basically just keep it up indefinitely while you're playing. But Lorelei Splendor also gives you one other buff that some people don't really pick up on, and that is the fact that it basically gives you the Sol Invictus buff without actually having to slot this aspect in. With Sol Invictus, Solar Ability Final Blows, Hammer of Sol impacts, and defeating scorched targets will create sunspots. Your abilities will regenerate faster, and your super drains more slowly while standing in a sunspot. Sunspots will also apply Scorch and deal damage to targets inside. Entering a sunspot will apply Restoration. All of these buffs usually require you to run Sol Invictus, but so long as you're running Lorelei Splendor, you automatically get the Sol Invictus buffs every time you create a sunspot, which is going to be whenever you're critically wounded or whenever you cast your Rally Barricade. It's a massive benefit to the class, and the fact that you can basically run all 3 aspects by just running this simple setup is unbelievable. Let's talk about some of the mods here. For the helmet, I went with Seeking Wells. There's a lot of versatility that you can run with this. You don't necessarily have to run an arc helmet, but I like the way Seeking Wells works since you're going to be out amongst a bunch of enemies. Having those wells tracked to your position is definitely a benefit there. I'm also running Hands-On for the bonus super energy on melee kills, which is going to be the primary way you're blowing things up on this build. Next up, of course, we've got Melee Wellmaker. You're going to be seeing a few of these on this build. Of course, powered melee combatant final blows will spawn elemental wells matching your subclass energy type. Means as long as you're getting those powered melee kills, you're going to be generating solar elemental wells. For the chest piece, we are, of course, running Armor of the Dying Star for the extra survivability out there in PvE, Concussive Dampener, and then Bountiful Wells. We're going to be running a few copies of Melee Wellmaker, and so this is going to increase the amount of elemental wells that Melee Wellmaker will be spawning based on the number of Melee Wellmakers you have equipped. Alright, for boots, we've got Explosive Wellmaker. This works in tangent with your Consecration. Since Consecration is going to be activating a litany of buffs on your character, it also counts as a powered melee kill, so it triggers Melee Wellmaker, and it triggers Explosive Wellmaker. This also works if you're somebody out there who likes to use Wither Horde, since this mod will allow Wither Horde to spawn elemental wells as well. Alright, finally, of course, we've got another Melee Wellmaker on our class item. I'm running a Stasis class item specifically for Utility Kickstart. When you've got 2 Utility Kickstarts on, it makes your Rally Barricade recharge really quickly, ludicrously quickly, meaning you'll have the extra survivability that those sunspots that are generated by Lorelei Splendor, you'll have them basically all the time in any content that you're playing. But alright, that's the basics there. You can generally slot in or out a lot of different perks depending on the content that you're running. If you're not running anything with champions, you can go ahead and toss on something like a melee kickstart or the reserves or scavenger perks that would really work with whatever build you're trying to run. And as you can see, this doesn't really require any artifact mods, meaning when this season ends and all of these awesome artifact mods that we've got access to right now go away, you'll still be able to use this build to its fullest. Now, if you do want to use some artifact mods, there are some suggestions I could give you. Definitely Solar Fulmination is a worthwhile pick in virtually any Solar 3.0 build. With this, your ignitions are going to deal increased damage in an increased radius. And the beauty of this build is you don't even need anything like Class C Restoration. You're not going to get any benefit from running it on there. As long as you've got Lorelei Splendor on, you're going to be getting the restoration times 2. That way you can also run stuff like Withering Heat or really kind of whatever mod setup you want to go on this. And there's even going to be some utility there where you can swap out maybe one of these well makers in for a Font of Might if you're using specifically all solar weapons. The basics of this build are really easy to work with and it works really well in a lot of in-game game modes. And as for your personal weapon preference, you can really use whatever you want. If you're somebody who's getting out there and you feel like you're not getting your melee energy back fast enough, of course, Monte Carlo is going to be an amazing weapon to pair with this. There's never going to be a time in which you don't have your melee energy. As long as there are enemies around, you'll have infinite access to fully powered melees, which means more consecration, more explosions, more radiance, more restoration, more healing, more sunspots, more everything with this build. I'm having a lot of fun with this. It's worked for me in higher difficulty Nightfalls, Lost Sectors, the dungeon, and more. And it's definitely my pick for general Titan content throughout the game. Though the Hammer Bonk build got a pretty big nerf with the hotfix last week, still works just as well. If you want to run Syntheseps and do that basic build, that's absolutely fine. But with this build, you truly are a tank. You're staying alive, Consecration's giving you a litany of buffs, and it's just a lot of fun to play with. Get out there and give it a shot, Guardians. But that's just a quick guide video on the current Titan build that I'm running for basically all bits of content in Destiny 2. If you've got any other Titan Solar 3.0 builds, be sure to list them out in the comment section below. How do you feel about this build? What would you change about it? Be sure to let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. I'm out for now. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.